jungle room, the vines hang deep. Breeze and raindrops as the emerald boa slither. Face to face they draw their guests in close. Their calm invites us to come hither. Every corner built for curious mind, a jungle playground, nature design. Build them homes, let instincts flow. Babies born, tiny lives begin to grow.
Greetings. Welcome, everybody, to the Happy Basins podcast on the Untamed and Unhinged Reptile Podcast Network on YouTube. We are super fortunate today to have with us Tom and Stacy Crutchfield. Tom, thank you so much for being here today.
It's my pleasure. It's an honor to be asked. Thank you.
Guys, you might be wondering why what you can read all over line, the godfather of reptile keeping, Tom Crutchfield, is sitting here on my podcast today. I am so honored. The reason why Tom and Stacy are with us today is because of their love and passion for building relationships with reptiles. And Tom and Stacy have taken a notice to the interaction and the relationships that we've built with our emeralds. And so here they are. Well, here they were.
Oh, that means it's 6.
Tom, you know,
Hello?
yes, we can see you.
Did
We
you
can
lose
hear you.
contact?
He'll be back, you guys. He'll be right back. He's having some technical difficulties. Tom and Stacy recently moved and their computer broke. So Tom's trying to use his phone as well as they're having some difficult weather there in Florida. So here he is back with us.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't even know what happened.
Don't be sorry. Tom, you know, I have a lot of folks on my podcast that don't know anything about reptiles. They're here as friends and family, but they've really been enjoying and learning a lot. Anybody in the reptile community knows who you are, but some of my friends and family don't. And I've been telling folks this Tom Crutchfield goes all the way back to the beginning, before we even had laws about importing reptiles, right?
Yes, there were no laws when I began.
And reptiles.
And I literally made expeditions to go collect wild ones in the Caribbean. When I spent 10 years in the Caribbean collecting. And I would go catch stuff, bring the stuff back. And I worked for Sears Roebuck, so I didn't have much money. And so my hope for the trips I was paying for, if I had, good, I was a salesman and I got paid commission. So if I had a good sales thing, I'd plan a trip somewhere in the Caribbean. I went to Bahamas, Jamaica, Hispaniola, including Dominican Republic and Haiti, Turks and Caicos, I mean everywhere. And I was collecting reptiles that I was, had an enormous passion for and interested in, and still am today, and still keep Chilobacters today. But in those days, you could go catch them, bring them back in your suitcase. You could declare them, or if they found them, nobody cared. I mean, there was no CITES in the 70s or anything like that. And so my hope was always just to pay for the trip and have sell the animals and pay for the trip, and then keep the animals I wanted and be able to afford to do that. That was a big goal.
And you have a huge reputation in the reptile community for the reason they call you the godfather of kept reptiles is because you brought in a lot of species that they hadn't seen here in America. And we wouldn't even have all of these pets if it wasn't for pioneers like you.
Yeah, and there were a few others too that did a lot of collecting around and all over, and it was a different world then. And even the dangers of going to Haiti in the 70s when I went so many times. Haiti back in the time was very primitive. I mean, there's no electricity most anywhere you went. And I remember spending the night in a Haitian village near Camporine in the Tiburon Peninsula on extreme southwestern Haiti, down on the Tiburon, down that little peninsula thing there, to catch a special boa that had just been described from there, which I got 9. But I had to stay a week, and I was sleeping in this village. And the guy, the headman, through my interpreter, because they all speak a deep Bush Creole, which is a French patois, and I never really got to understand it very well, just some words. But he asked me, and he kept asking me the same thing. And I asked Fritz, I said, "What's he asking me?" We were laying in the hut at night, literally a hut, like a mud and manure sided hut with a thatched roof, and spending the night there. They were always really nice to us, and we shared food with them. They shared food with us, and he asked me if I could hear the corn grow. He was that close to the land, and I was thinking, well, I can't hear the corn grow at all. And I thought I was pretty, close to the land, but these people who literally, the land is how they live. That's all they know. And then I realized everything was so different or it was a gradual learning process, and that, we're keeping reptiles so many years. I learned very, very quickly that reptiles express a lot of sentience every day if we understand what it is we're seeing. And a lot of people do not understand what it is they're actually looking at. Like a rhino iguana may run with an open mouth toward you. And one guy gave me a rhino one time because it did that. And when one does that, it's absolutely happy beyond belief, and it's just going to run up to you and wait to be petted. That's all, with open mouth, head bob running. I've seen that hundreds and hundreds of times with Sakura, because that was always one of the species I brought back from the Caribbean too, were rhino iguanas that I personally collected myself.
And you've had some large facilities over the years down there in South Florida.
I have.
And some folks know, a lot of folks know, it's been popular the last years about the invasive species in South Florida, and that occurring when we had large reptile farms hit by the hurricanes. And so you have some responsibility for that too, don't you?
Are you talking about with Burmese pythons escaping?
Well, there are a lot of different invasive species.
Yeah, but a lot of these, here's what happened. There were 2 animal dealers, and honestly, I co-authored a book with John Murphy in 2018 called Giant Snakes. It's a reference book, and we have an entire chapter on the Florida Burmese and where they actually came from. And Florida Burmese pythons have been around for a very long time. But in the time of when all of the red-headed gammas got released and all of that was pretty much intentional, because the 2 reptile dealers, which will remain unnamed, had facilities out near Frog Pond, which is in the national park, like right there, which was the hub of the Burmese thing when the population exploded too, was Frog Pond area. So anyway, so what they would do if animals come in that they couldn't sell, or had big bad subtails on the lizards or something wrong with them, they would just throw them out of the door. And so all of a sudden, we've got like red-headed gammas, Gamma pectata now all over Florida, because they're coming in plants and stuff like that. And they're feral more than invasive. It's not proven that they do any harm anywhere, really. And the Burmese pythons, what happened with them was the same thing. And Hurricane Andrew happened in 1992. Only 150 Burmese pythons were imported into the United States at that year, and they went all to California, not to Florida. So there were no baby Burmese in. I called the 2 reptile dealers that were out there and asked them, did they have any baby Burmese or anybody else that they knew? And they said no. There might have been some Burmese that were released, but it would be fewer than 30 probably. You know what I mean? Because there was no place that was holding babies for export. In 1984, I think it was President Clinton, opened up Vietnam. And once he opened up Vietnam, big shipments of Burmese began to come in. And in 1994, over 5,000 Burmese were imported, with a lot of them to Florida. They were doing the same thing with the Burmese, like with the red-headed gammas. If they had a stub tail, didn't look good, one eye, whatever might be wrong with them, and just throw them out of the door. And pretty soon you throw so many, they're going to find each other real quick, and then they start having babies, and they have to push further to find food, and all of a sudden, and there were already Burmese in the documented in the Everglades and in the Big Cypress way back as far as 1969. So they've been there a long time, but they've just never had the numbers to support the populations that exist there now until they got the added Vietnam. That also too, almost all of the wild ones they test have Vietnamese origin as blood, by the way. So that throws the thing into what a lot of people think too. Because one problem with herpetoculture today is they think stuff without really understanding it or understanding what the real truth is, for sure. But like the Nile crocodiles in Florida, people are arguing that there are wild Nile crocodiles in Florida. It is true 4 wild Nile crocodiles were captured in Florida. There was some alligator farm that they found, FWC isolated it, and they know where the crocodiles came from, they know how many, and they caught them all. So that's another like fallacy that you hear around that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Rochford, in fact, who's on Facebook a lot, was one of the guys that caught some of the crocodiles, and Chris Gillette.
So it's not always what you hear in the news
No.
when you know the real side of it.
Or there's another facet to the story too that you don't know about that affects what actually happened.
Right. I'm sure that there are a lot of things you could tell us that we don't know or that we have a misbelief about.
I don't know about that, but that's certainly true what I just told you.
I have spent quite a lot of time out in the Amazon rainforest, and when I first started going, I always tell the story that I would look around in those trees and I would get tears in my eyes thinking, I wish my emeralds could be out there free roaming in the trees.
Yeah.
But then, I've had 11 trips now, and it was on my 4th trip when I started getting tears in my eyes for a completely different reason. And that was that I wanted to take all these emeralds home that I was finding to spoil them and give them a good life. And that's another misconception, is that those animals living out there free are not living a great life. They're not always.
Tough life, but I look at it the way you do on one side, but on the other side, there are wild creatures too, and we are taking their freedom, even no matter what. And so we have to think about that. Some animals that would be way more important than others, depending on how they express their unwelcome.
And when you think about their habitats, because when you were traveling back then, we didn't have nearly the damage to their habitats that we have nowadays.
There was plenty, believe me. When I flew into Haiti the first time, it would have been about 1971 probably. And I was flying in from the north over the Dominican Republic and Haiti, and I could see the demarcation line between Haiti and the Dominican Republic at that time. Now, that's a long time ago. And you could see it because in the Haitian side, they had already taken all the trees and made charcoal out of them. So it was just the beginning of a catastrophe. I was involved in Haiti early on with a guy named Haitian by the name of Roger Constant. And he had a program called Operation Kumbit, Khoumbite. And it means banding together for something good in Creole, And it was a reforestation program. And I got involved with that and got a lot of tree plants, little saplings for him, that we shipped to Haiti and all kinds of stuff. But Haiti is worse now than it was then, and I wouldn't even want to go there now.
Before you started bringing the reptiles back to the States, what kind of reptiles did you have before you ever even dreamed of importing?
Well, I travel around to tourist attractions, so I saw and knew I've seen a lot of reptiles. I just didn't own as many as I owned once I started to do that. But I gradually got to get in where I was really lucky. I've had so much stuff. I've had even both species of trachea boa, Bonzeri, and what was the other one? Never remember. The water aquatic boas from Ecuador, and just all kinds of like off the wall rattlesnakes, and because I pursued the stuff that the zoos would want to buy, and they wanted the rare stuff, and that was the most money. So I wasn't a pet store uh, guy that much. I didn't even want to import that kind of stuff. I didn't want it when I got it. I wholesaled it real quick because that wasn't how I made my money. I made my money selling higher end animals always.
And when did you decide to start keeping them for yourself, some of them?
Before I ever started the reptile business, I first started keeping snakes. I was about 6 years old.
Just catching local snakes?
Catching ringneck snakes I caught in my backyard under rocks. Yep.
And when you were that young, were you handling venomous all the way back then?
No, the earliest that I actually had handled venomous, I was a little bit afraid to, although I had seen people catch them behind the neck. And all we had was big jars to put them in. And so I had a big jar. I once turned over some tin in a barn where I'd find usually gray rat snakes or corn snakes. And there was about a 3 foot or 2.5 foot eastern diamondback rattlesnake under it. And so I let it go back, pinned the rattlesnake down, carefully got it behind the neck, somehow got it in the damn jar without me getting bit by it. And that was my first catch of a venomous snake, and I was 12 years old.
And have you dealt with venomous
My whole life.
animals from overseas?
Oh my God, yes. I mean,
Wait.
anything you could think of. Had all 4 species of mambas.
Wow.
I even had a Gulf tree cobra one time. I've had, you name it, I've had it. We used to
When
get mambas in stock all the time. I'd never have less than 6 king cobras in the store. I mean, yeah. And curiously enough, I've never been bitten handling a venomous snake either, not once.
wow.
I've been bitten 3 times, but 2 were through a bag, and I didn't even. One was a freak, and the other one was there was supposed to be no venomous snakes in the shipment. It was just a copperhead, and then a West African green mamba gave me a dry bite through a bag, and then I had a strike out of a cage, a feeding strike from a female Crotalus pyrus when I was putting her mate back in, the male, and the 2 fangs barely. I turned my hand sideways as the strike came like that, so it couldn't bite me. It could only stick me with the fangs, and it didn't inject any venom enough. It made 2 little black circles. That's it. So
Wow, those mambas are the most venomous snake, aren't they?
they're very dangerous. They're one of the most venomous, but they're not necessarily the most venomous.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to definitely talk about relationships with animals. That's the main thing I want to talk
Right.
about. But first, I want to ask you, I've worked with the exportation process all the way from being with the cowboys out in the field, all the way through to being a person who has one here, 2 of them here in my house.
Mm-hmm.
And when you were collecting those animals, did you get most of those yourself looking for them, or did you have folks in different areas that would bring them to you?
We bought from other reptile dealers in situ. Well, or in the early days too, when it was easier to get permits and all that stuff too. I made 3 trips around the world just buying reptiles and catching reptiles. And if I caught anything I could sell, I brought that back. But I was mostly buying stuff from other local hunters and dealers there. Like I went to hide farms to look for monitor lizards and stuff like that, where they're killing the poor things, the big water monitors, and picking out the best ones and shipping them back.
And then you would ship them in crates or bring them back on the airplane or both?
Well, I'd ship them back. You couldn't bring a 7.5, 8 foot water monitor on a plane.
Right.
Be hard.
Mm-hmm.
Hard.
Yes. Well, impossible, really.
Yeah.
Yes, that's all so interesting. Just to think about traveling the world and bringing animals into this country that would have
I did a
never
lot of
been
it.
here.
I did a lot of it.
What do you think is the rarest animal you've ever brought back?
A pair of the rarest, which won't mean anything to you, is a pair of pit vipers found in southern Thailand. And I got a pair right after they had been described. They're named after a guy named Wurat Nudapund, and the scientific name is Trimeresurus uh, wiroti, Wiroti. And I brought a pair of those in from my buddy in Bangkok, procured them for me at a long process. And the Abilene Zoo bought them. They also bought 2 pairs of tracheoboa I had, tracheoboa belingeri and tracheoboa, that's the other one I can't remember the species of, but I had both species of them.
And did you work with emeralds back then at all?
Oh God, yeah, they were real common. Big Amazon basins were $35.
Wow.
I saw one of Bill Chase's, I bet was 3 meters long one time.
Wow.
Yeah, as big as my hand. And tame as could be.
They are so tame, and that's the main reason we're here with Tom today, you guys. I just wanted you to get a little bit of the history to see what an OG Tom really is in the world of reptiles. But Tom, your relationships that you build, you and Stacy build with your reptiles is just even saying it right now, thinking about the way you treat and love and get loved back by your reptiles just gives me good feeling, goosebumps all over.
Yeah, I mean, you met some of the crocodile monitors, which you came to the farm. Now, that is the most feared lizard by keepers in the United States, probably in zoos too. And being honest with you, I understand why with most people. But to be fair, uh, all ours were wild caught, and all of them are tame. You saw that yourself. I mean, to the point I can pick them up and like walk around with them. One of them we even let walk outside with no leash for an hour or more.
Better watch his Family Guy with me.
And let it, and he gets, and when it get too cold, we'd move him inside, just really worried about him getting too cold, even though we had heat in the boxes. And inside, Stacy, if he was in over a day, Stacy would feel bad for him, let him out of the box, which I didn't know. And he was laying in the bed with her in there watching Family Guy one time, with his head on her chest and his big. I've got a picture of it. His big giant claw on her chest like that. And I mean, his hand's bigger than her hand.
That is so beautiful. And if you guys
And
saw the video,
he allows it. He wants to do it.
he likes it, or he would walk away.
Correct. He loves it.
If you guys saw the video that I posted that I took at Tom's house, he's feeding his crocodile monitor. He's taking one mouse out of the bucket at a time. His hands are covered in mouse juice, smell like mouse. And he gives the crocodile monitor that mouse, and the crocodile monitor is so careful not to, Bill is his name, so careful not to touch Tom's hand. So gentle and sweet, very, very clearly intelligent.
Highly intelligent. They are undoubtedly the most intelligent squamate reptile that I've ever, had the honor to keep and deal with. And what I mean by squamate reptile, most people should know it means, snakes or lizards. And of all the squamates and all the kinds of, that means all the lizards too. I believe that Salvadori is right up near the top because I've seen them do things that I find it hard to believe. I'm going to tell you one thing that they do. Now, have you ever had a dog, or especially like a pet, clouded leopard? They'll come up a lot of times and put their jaws over your arm, but not ever bite. You know how dogs do that all the time? And I've often wondered why animals do that, and birds do that. Parrots are known for that, biting you on the nose, and cats even do that too. Well, when they're petting them, they'll bite your hand, but not hard, just like grab hold of it, so you feel the power. Well, what if I told you? I've often wondered why animals do it, and I believe it's because to show you that they could hurt you if they want to, and that they trust you completely, and they're not going to hurt you. It's a way of showing affection, if you will. So, and I may get attacked for saying that, but I can prove pretty much anything I've said in videos that I personally have right now. And the crocodile monitor he's only done it to 4 people. It was Bill, but he will go up to you and he will start to push like on your arm, and then he'll open his giant mouth and grab your forearm in his mouth. And he's done that to me twice, and all you feel are the teeth. You feel every tooth he's got, and you don't move, because if you were to snatch your arm out, my God, you'd have to go to the hospital immediately for cut tendons and everything. He tried to turn you loose, but it would happen. So you just let him do it. But he's done it to Stacy. He's done it to Fred Grunwald before he died. Fred, by the way, snatched his arm out of the mouth and should have hurt himself and barely got cut by one tooth, because the monitor threw his head back and opened his mouth 180 degrees to avoid getting snatched on the teeth. I watched it. I was standing right there. And somebody else who did too is Rob Christian, formerly from Nerd. And he got Rob Christian on the groin. He was sitting on the pool, and he came up and put his mouth over his entire groin and sat there and looked at Rob. And thankfully, Rob didn't do anything stupid. He just sat there and looked back at but if you jumped or tried to tear and his teeth got caught in the pants, it'd be a problem, So it turned out all right. And the only reason I can think of he would do that is just to let you know that he's well aware of the power of his teeth and claws. I already know that with how he treats me when I'm feeding him and other things. You saw it yourself. He definitely knows the difference in my hand and food.
Yes. He's very big, and it's just beautiful to see the way you guys interact with him and all of your animals.
Yeah, I have all the venomous snakes. Don't try to bite either. I mean, we don't go out and free handle them all the time, but I had a big Maine sand viper. I finally lost her to a heat catastrophe in the building she was in and killed her getting it too hot. But she was 8.5 feet long, and if I opened the door and stood there for 5 minutes, she'd crawl out, climb around my shoulders and stuff, and want to go walk around. We used to clean the cages. We'd put her on the cart and let her be free, and have all our cleaning stuff on the cart as we're going around to the other cages. Christine Bialecki used to do that, and let her sit on the end and look around, and she'd periscope, but we just ignore her. And this is a deadly, venomous, big pit viper who knows everything that's going on around it. And I have pics to prove it. And I would advise no one to do that, because not everyone can make that kind of a relationship or understand when you're invited into their world. That's the whole thing. Once they invite you, you need to go. The greatest thing that I think impairs people from dealing with dangerous animals in a reliable, responsible way is their personal fear of themselves that they hold inside. Because right now we're having a good time, we're talking a lot. Well, I'm talking a lot. I'll shut up in a minute, but if we brought another person into the room right now that was in a pissed off mood, it would change all of our energy, how we feel. And I think animals pick up energy off people. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I walk up to a venomous snake, I'm absolutely not afraid of it. The snake knows that. So it doesn't pick up fear from me. But if it picks up fear from the person handling it, it's going to direct that fear towards that person because you're messing with it. And then it becomes dangerous because it's scared. And that's what happens.
They definitely feel the energy. I had my one big girl, Isis, who has never had this behavior before or after, but I did a podcast a while back with a fella who he opened his show with all kinds of stuff, cussing and bong smoking, and that was like his entry. And I had invited my mother-in-law and my neighbors, grandchildren were all watching this. I was real proud I was going to be on this podcast. And when that came up, I started sweating and I got on my computer as fast as I could to say warning, everything. And for the rest of that show, Isis was usually I take out all of my emeralds and let them slither all around when I do when I'm a guest on a podcast. And I couldn't do anything. She was extremely nervous. Every time I moved, she was striking and hissing. she felt all of that anxiety that I had.
I don't doubt that at all, and I believe everything you're saying. And I believe that you understand. And I know that most people do not understand and simply can't because they can't wrap their hand around. Like when I was really young, I was taught that reptiles were cold-blooded and really dim-witted, and all they did was just respond to stimuli. And that's why science was teaching me that, and not just me, but everybody else at the same time. And so we never looked into the actual amount of sentience they have as much as any bird. They remind me, a lot of what they do reminds me of birds, to tell you the truth, and how they act and react and so forth. But it goes back to that German ethological word I think I discussed with you at the farm, umwelt, and how they apply the umwelten towards their reality. And once you understand that, then it's pretty easy to understand their ethology and be able to act accordingly.
Well, I like to say that my Zaza, my green iguana, who is extremely expressive and super friendly, is our ambassador here because my
Yeah.
emeralds can't express themselves the way she can.
No.
But I can read her so easily that I transfer that onto these emeralds. And I have really learned a lot about my emeralds, what they like and don't like, and what they're willing to tolerate and when they're willing to interact, just by reading Jaja and transferring that onto these guys.
Reading Jaja, that's the iguana, right?
Yes, just
So I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that.
for example, Jaja doesn't always want to come down off her perch, but once I put my hands under her and I have her lifted up, she's so happy to be there with me. She walks all around the house. Sometimes if I put her down, she comes running back and I have to carry her around. And the same way with these emeralds, sometimes they do want to stay on their perch, but once they're off their perch, they're perfectly happy and content and interactive. That's just one example.
I see.
And
Yeah, that's interesting.
yes, I call her our ambassador because, of course, when I'm out there looking for the emeralds, we find lots of iguanas. We have to sometimes study real hard from down in the boat to see if it's an iguana or an emerald. They're so similar in so many ways. So I
Yeah.
just started looking for behaviors that I could relate from Jaja onto the emeralds, and it has really been amazing.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds super.
And the intelligence is incredible, like you said,
It
with
is.
can you say the word again real clearly, that you said a minute ago that we talked about?
The word umwelt.
Is it
It's UMWELT, and that's a German,
Welt?
and that's a German ethological word that has a huge meaning. And what it says is basically every organism views its reality in different ways. For instance, a catfish reality at the bottom and mud of a lake with the whiskers doing the looking and all that stuff is very, very different than that, say, of a deer. A deer is very, very different than that of a green iguana. And of course, green iguanas are way different than human beings or any kind of a primate, who views the world in completely different ways, like snakes with a Jacobson's organ and different things they have, pit vipers with their heats, sensors and stuff like that. That's the key of it all, basically.
Trying to imagine what it's like from their little perspectives.
Well, you have to see the world as they do, and then you know how not to irritate them or scare them. And if you don't scare them, then they're not going to get scared of you, and then you're not going to be pretty safe handling it, even if it's a lethal reptile. Like the worst I've ever was hurt was with that crocodile monitor bite and all the years and all the dangerous animals and me owning a crocodile farm for 12 years. I had 19 species on the farm, captive bred 10 species, including lots of Cuban crocodiles. We used to bring, about 40 or 50 a year we'd hatch out. And we had 2 nests every year. And the crocodile farm really taught me a lot too. The crocodiles are actually on another level even compared to crocodile monitors. They have an intelligence level like that of a corvid bird. You know, if you think of a crow or a magpie, that's the kind of intelligence that any crocodilian has.
Wow.
And they bond with people so easy too. When
Well,
that's
that isn't something that you knew in the beginning.
I did not. I learned that. I learned a lot though. I meant I didn't. I'm not an academic, and even academics can't learn the kind of things I've learned, how the animals actually act, and seeing them in nature. And I mean, some see some things, but I mean, you know what I mean. I went after everything. So I mean, I even went and looked at reptiles. I've been to 6 of the 7 continents. I mean, I've even been to Australia. So
Well, what was the changing point when you started seeing the animals as thinkers?
the crocodile farm, where
Mm.
I had all the crocodiles on the farm, and they were all trained, and you know, you could go in like the crocodiles, same keeping crocs at Gatorland, and those big Niles they have. Those came from me from my farm. They bought half of all the crocodiles, and that was what they call crocodiles of the world exhibit they have at Gatorland. And I trained all those crocodiles. We hand fed every one of them. My daughters did, and they were like young teenagers, you know, 14 or 15. They're out going in with the Cuban crocodiles, hand feeding them, calling them, you know, and we fed the big male first, Fidel, and then feed the others according to their rank, you know, and then have them come out and then feed them. Because if you throw the food in the water, you don't know one's going to get more food than the others because it's going to keep them away. So we hand fed them. Every crocodile there, every big breeding crocodile.
And then you transferred what you learned there onto the
Well, I
snakes
started
and
to look
other.
at snakes more closely, and I'd seen some things with snakes I couldn't understand exactly, but I just thought it was a fluke or one of a kind or something like that. All keepers have had one kind of reptile they had that they thought was really exceptional in some way, and that has to do with the relationship that they've established with the reptile, and more than the kind of reptile that it is, if that makes sense. Because I've established complete trust situations from venomous to harmless to crocodiles to crocodile monitor lizards to all of it.
I've seen some of your amazing videos handling venomous animals with such grace and the animal responding graciously back to you.
You know why? I'm giving them great respect. The greatest of respect I give all of them. And once you give them respect, then it's much easier to stay safe. But you can't be some kind of an asshole and just go messing with a snake or something like that, or scaring it on purpose or any of that stuff. Then it's gonna turn on you, of course.
It's amazing to watch the connection that you and Stacy have made with all of your animals. It's such a
Yeah,
beautiful thing.
yeah, it is to us too, and I've always loved that. And one thing I love about Stacy is she is sort of an excellent. How shall I put it? Some people are born different than others in energy level. She was never afraid of any animal, if that makes sense. Even when she started to learn to handle venomous years ago, you know, she wasn't afraid. It's the hardest thing you can do is to teach somebody that's afraid to handle how to handle because they're being scared transfers to the snake who then becomes a lot more antagonistic and more difficult to handle because you're scaring it, you know, and she never did. So, and from day one on anything like that, she's always been, um, uh, it's like she was born different or something. You know, you have a special gift in that too, in understanding animals. You'd understand other stuff if you had the chance to come in contact with it.
I have definitely had I've only been working with these emeralds for 5 years. It'll be 5 years next month.
That
And
sounds fun.
whatever happened, it just happened.
Strange.
I had
But
a
it's good. I love the way you keep them and all that too, and think of them. So it's good.
And that was another thing I wanted to ask you is not only your experience at the crocodile farm. Was it an alligator farm or crocodile farm?
It was
What'd you say?
crocodile. It was
The
crocodile.
crocodile farm. Um, when you started learning that more reptiles had thinking processes and and abilities to interact and be friendly,
Yeah.
but you were not keeping your animals in larger naturalistic enclosures
Well,
before.
actually, I was. I've been doing that since the very beginning. Like the pet Burmese pythons I had, I partitioned off my garage into 3 cages that were 24, or actually 20 feet by 8 feet, and then the next one was 8 feet. And we had doors inside the garage. You could go into the cages with basking platforms and all that. We're going back to the 1975. I had another big Burmese in a 16-foot long cage. We didn't know much about how to keep giant snakes then, but we figured giant snakes needed giant cages, and they do. And even what we provided really wasn't big enough as I understand today, but I didn't understand it back then. And I didn't understand the sentience that the giant snakes have either. And they're all reasonably intelligent.
And do you think the larger snakes are more intelligent than smaller snakes, or you can't really say that?
Not necessarily. I can't say that. I know that I've had a lot of experience with giant snakes, and I know that they are very intelligent and also express sentience. But then again, so do a lot of other snakes too. So the boas that have expressed the most sentience are ones you'd never think of, were the Candoia vibroni australis, which would come out if you tapped on the cage. It would unbury itself wherever it was, come out and climb all over you, just sitting in front of the cage while you sat there. And you could call it, and it's getting nothing out of it. It's not getting fed anything.
When I'm in the field, I have found that the emeralds and the rainbow boas seem to understand that they're not in danger and they're very handleable. I
Well, that's because you're not afraid of it.
But then I have the red-tailed boas and some of the vine snakes, the cooks, or the, what do they call it? Amazon tree boas.
Corrales hortulana.
Yes, the Corrales hortulanas. Those animals seem to take a lot longer to calm down, if they ever even do. But so far, out of 32 wild emeralds I've held in my hands, I've never had one that I wasn't able to calm. So I think that there are different levels of intelligence. Some of the animals are so curious, and they realize they're not in danger, that they just seem to be. I take full-grown emeralds, and anybody can hold them after I work with them for maybe 20 minutes. So they're definitely not all created equal, in my experience.
No, they're really not. But then there's individual animals and all animals that are better or like worse than others. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I see that in Cyclura like crazy, because Cyclura lives so long, and I've seen so many of them and that stuff, and their personality's different. Females never get as tame quite as males, and even though if you keep them and train, you keep them exactly the same, and just different things like that. But,
I find that with my hamsters. The males are really nice and you can hold them and pet them, and the females you can't.
wow, I did not know that. But then again, I've never had hamsters, so
Yeah, they're vicious little animals. They really are.
I don't doubt they're rodents. So. But did you want to talk to Stacy at all? Or?
Yes.
All right, well, hang on. She's right here. Yeah. Oh.
Stacy, everybody is so happy to see you looking so fine, sitting at the table. You look like you're feeling great.
I mean, I can't complain.
Well, we're really glad to have you here. I had so much fun watching you at your farm, taking care of I'm going to say emus, because I don't think they were ostriches.
They're emus.
Emus. And I would be much more afraid of an emu than I would of a snake. but you were just out there interacting and working with her, and clearly knew you.
Well, those emus grew up in the house, literally inside of the house. So the male loved Stacy. Darwin would follow her anywhere.
Darwin would let me braid his hair.
Yeah, she braided his hair, all kinds of stuff.
So your gift with animals goes far beyond reptiles.
It actually does, and it's actually on the level like me, or maybe even a little better than me.
I say better.
Well, you might be wrong too, girl, but we'll see.
Well, if she had as many years as you did to develop it, then
It's only been the 10 years since she's been.
Well, who schooled you on croc monitors?
It is actually Stacy would take more risks with the croc monitors than I would, knowing what they can do. And after I got the accidental bite, even though we've been hand feeding them for years, I said, let's just back up on hand feeding them eggs and stuff a little bit, because your whole hand is in his mouth with eggs. And she's out there sitting in with Bill and sitting down with a bowl of eggs in her hand, like a bowl you might put eggs in out of a refrigerator.
The water bowl.
The water bowl. And the croc monitor was sitting in her lap eating the eggs.
Food always helps.
did you have reptiles as a kid, Stacy?
No, I wasn't allowed.
Typical.
No, I had what we had outside. I grew up in Connecticut, so we didn't have lizards. I mean, I would catch salamanders here and there, maybe a garter snake, ringneck snakes, like bullfrogs, not box turtles, the painted turtles.
So how did all this start?
I've always liked them. It's just I never really had much till I was older. And my first reptile was a green iguana.
A rescue.
Yeah, not Iggy. There was one before that.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Dexter.
So when you started working at Tom's place, because you worked there with him before you guys became a couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I remember. And at that point, was that the first time you've ever worked with reptiles on that scale?
On that scale, yes, but I've worked with them before. And I had was it an iguana and a beardy? But I interacted with a lot of others in Connecticut. It was just their laws were a lot stricter, and I just didn't have. I was working in the medical field at the time, so it was something that needed a lot less.
Yeah, tell them what your real occupation was.
Oh no, well,
Yeah.
my degree is in respiratory therapy.
Have you ever used any of that knowledge for reptiles? I know respiratory is a big deal with reptiles.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Respiratory infections are really scary in a reptile collection because it can spread and you have to use antibiotics to get rid of it usually. So do you have any advice for us out here dealing with respiratory infections?
Go to the vet is the best.
Yeah, the vet's the best, and at home, what you can do is do whatever you can to prevent it. Like for a beardy, you don't want to keep them in something humid, then they will get a respiratory infection.
Mm-hmm. And I always like to stress, especially with these kind of animals that I keep with such high humidity, is to always have good airflow in the enclosures.
Yeah.
That's really important, is the airflow.
Yes. And you started handling venomous snakes for the first time with Tom, though, right?
Yes.
How did that feel? I imagine that even as unafraid as you are, with your natural abilities, that was still a little scary.
Tell her about your first business.
Oh God. Well, the first one I ever held was a gaboon viper. A big
One of the most dangerous ones.
Yeah. Well, Tom had it out and he was showing someone, and I was standing next to him. Next thing you know, he hands it to me. And he's like, "Here, hold this." I'm like, "What?" So I wasn't expecting it.
How big was he or
Like-
she?
4 feet, 4.5 feet.
Yeah, just slightly shorter than me.
Probably weighed 25 pounds. 30 pounds.
Wow. Yes, for those of you who do not know, gaboon vipers are big, fat-bodied,
They're
very
heavy.
venomous, and very fast. I mean,
But
they move slowly, but when they strike, it's fast.
I know they don't really want to bite usually, thank goodness. So they're not too bad on the defensive end of it.
And I should also say they are absolutely the most beautiful animal.
They are.
They don't even look real.
They don't.
Their head, if you actually doesn't seem it until you see it, but their head blends in with leaves like better than you could believe.
I've got 4 in the garage right now, so in our reptile room.
Well, the 3 babies, right?
Yeah, they're not babies like that.
Oh,
You know, a question I always had about the gaboon viper, because I have met one gaboon viper in real life. He lives right here in my town. I've actually been over to visit him quite a few times. And we even fell so in love with him that we had this sculpture made by our friend.
oh wow, that's actually
For those-
really good. Hold on. Here, I'll let you see it.
For those of you who don't know what a gaboon viper looks like, this is a little mini version.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so the question that I had about the gaboon viper that I've never asked anybody or looked up is they're so loud, but they don't have vocal cords. So where is that sound coming from? Do you know?
Trachea. In forced out.
Yeah, because they can puff up pretty good.
They do. So do a lot of other things too. Soft scale vipers are the hissingest snakes of all, probably. All of the echis.
And so it's like a vibration from their trachea. Is that what you said?
Pushing air through their trachea. I mean, they have to do that to make that sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like loud and it goes on and on.
It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that sound.
Actually, I had one I accidentally scared the other day. I was turning the lights on in the morning. Usually I'd look, he tilts his head. I'm like, oh, he's sleeping. Went to turn the lights on. Next thing I hear a big bang in the back of the cage. He's puffed up and hissing. I'm like, so sorry.
He got startled.
Yeah, I didn't mean to.
Actually, gaboons don't normally want to bite. They normally won't.
No, actually, the bang was in the back of the cage like he was trying to get away.
Trying to get away.
First time someone actually moved their tail like that, so he was not, or she was not happy. No, it was a he.
He's not happy, yeah.
So you guys had to move all your stuff to another house. So you don't have as much stuff as you had when I was there.
We had to first foster the stuff out to friends of mine and then put the facilities in here. There were no facilities here. We've had to build them and from scratch. So that's what we're in the process of doing now. We have some of the stuff back already.
Yeah, it's coming back slowly.
Nice. Somebody just asked how your enclosure builds were going.
Pretty good.
Good. Slower than I'd like, but good.
It's getting there.
And projects like that are never ending. There's always an upgrade or
No, because once you get them, you get animals, you're building more, but then you got to clean the ones that already got the animals back.
or an animal gets bigger and now you have an empty enclosure, so you have to put something in there.
Still waiting on my pet narwhal.
No, I'm not.
How much space do you guys have outside? I haven't seen any pictures.
It's about half an acre.
Well, that's still nice.
Actually,
Yeah, and a big privacy fence. Might be a little more than half an acre.
Oh, nice. That privacy fence is really nice. Did you get to keep your emus?
oh, they're
See,
coming back.
They're coming back. We got to go get them.
Yay.
I miss them so much.
I know they're going to be so happy to see your face and be back with you. Are they at TY Park?
The ties now.
No, at the Homestead Alligator Farm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know. I was in a coma when that all happened.
Yeah, you had everybody scared, but you know that. And now look at you. It's a great inspiration.
Actually, I definitely didn't expect it.
Yep. I know when you feels like things are never going to turn around, and it's just so great to see you like this right now.
Yeah, I'm happy.
You look happy. We had some questions, a couple questions that people have asked that I didn't answer at the time, but I've logged them. I can't see everything. My eyes are a little blurry at this distance, but Somebody asked how old Bill is.
He would be about, and the best I can figure is about 16 or 17 years old.
And how long do they live? And if you guys don't know who Bill is,
About 20 to 30 years, depending.
20 to 30 years. And Bill is the big crocodile monitor we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, it's one of them. But also we have
Scarface.
which is just as tame. He's bigger than Bill. He was the one in the cage I took you in that was on the top shelf.
Oh, yes, I have pictures of me holding up my hand and his tongue is coming in my hand.
He loves people. He just wasn't down. But you can do everything with him you can with Bill, and he's more of a gentler feeder even than Bill is. That thing is never going to make a mistake about you. So careful.
They're both sweet, but Bill's my boy. Bill's my BFF.
Yeah, but I like Scarface. So.
How old is Scarface?
Scarface was in New Guinea wild and 7 feet long in the year 2020.
Wow. Fabulous. And then someone else asked, which I can answer this question, but there is another question I don't know, is if you had Mexican beaded lizard.
I do. I have a pair of Heloderma horridum and Xasperatum.
They were sleeping together this morning.
Real quick.
And I actually got to hold one of those.
Yeah. And you have to hold a heel monster too, I think.
Yes. Oh, that was my next question is what is the difference between a beaded dragon? Is it a dragon or a lizard and a Gila monster?
Well, they're different species.
Let me go check on Dexter.
Yeah, go see what the dog is barking out there. But they're different species of animals completely. Mexican beaded lizard lives in Mexico only, and there's 4 kinds of them. Not all the same species even. And then Gila monsters live in the southeastern U.S. and in Mexico.
Do the
But
beaded
Gila
lizards?
monsters are pink and black, and beaded lizards are sort of a golden yellow and black.
And are they all? What's the venomous aspect to those lizards?
Well, the venom they have is simply for defense. It's not for anything else. So I once was bitten by a Gila monster, pretty bad on the finger. And what it causes is intense pain in mammals because it's the thing they use for defense, not for hunting. It's not for finding their prey at all. It's for killing. It's for making somebody not want to eat them, or to stay away from them. And the venom, the fangs actually are in the lower jaw on both sides, and the venom gland right up underneath the fangs, and they're grooved. And when they bite, they hang on and try to chew the venom in, and it's extremely painful. There's an enzyme in the venom that causes extreme pain in mammals. There's another enzyme that destroys all the glycogen in your blood. Ozempic, the drug?
Mm-hmm.
That's made from synthetic Gila monster venom, and it's used to control diabetes, in people with a high sugar intake, because it'll take care of the glycogen in your body completely, and then you're going to pass out. And then you'll wake back up real quick, and then you can also have projectile vomiting and other stuff, and the pain lasts really bad for about a day, like unbelievably bad. Like go to the doctor and get pain medicine. And then the second day it starts to get better. My right index finger swelled up about that big around. It turned black. But there's no permanent damage to my finger. Crocodile monitor crippled this finger. It won't straighten out any more than that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
It's ruined. So the crocodile monitor bite was much worse long term. I did not go to the doctor with the Gila monster bite.
Just sucked it up, huh?
Yeah, I knew what was going to happen anyway. All they can do is treat the symptoms, and I didn't want to go to the hospital.
Well, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and so of course they always told us that the Gila monsters would kill us with a single bite to keep us from messing with them.
It's never been, I think, it's been one fatality from the Gila monsters and beaded lizards over the years in history. They won't kill you, but they'll sure ruin about a week of your life. Speaking from experience.
I never knew anybody who got bit by one. Well, now. I do now. Has Stacy ever gotten bit by a venomous?
No.
Wow. It's just amazing. We had videos to show you guys, but you guys can just Google Tom Crutchfield or go on his Facebook page and see his YouTube channel
Yeah. I
and
haven't put anything
see.
up there in a long time, but it's all good stuff.
Yeah, there may not be anything brand new, but there's legendary stuff on there of the way he works with his animals. Scary animals, that people would never want to touch, but you can see he's not just like holding the animal, he's actually interacting with the animals. That's the beauty of what you do.
Hmm. Yeah, well, they want me to. They like it, and so do I. So
My
if they
friend,
tell me to stop in their body language, I won't stop.
I have a very good friend of mine who tells my husband to buy me fake snakes to put in my jungle room and take all these real snakes and go put them in the tubs where they need to feel safe. And he said that the day my animals can either speak it or write it down that they're happy, he'll believe it.
That's not true. I mean, they're a lot better off where they are.
Yes, I think it's perfectly obvious the way that these emeralds, you asked how many emeralds I have in this house. Sometimes I don't even like to say it because I have no idea how it happened.
How many?
But we have 20. We have
That's a
16
lot.
basins and 4 northerns.
That's a lot.
I know they just keep coming. And the northerns that we have are the 2 northerns that we have. One was here in rehabilitation, and we ended up keeping her. And then the other one was one, of course, we saw at the expo. She was a big old girl, and we just couldn't leave her there. We wanted to spoil her.
Well, if she's in a place now, she'll be happy. So
But these animals all love people. I can hand them to anybody, any age, and the people have told me multiple times they feel calmed by these animals.
hmm
So to me, that is saying they're happy.
yeah, I feel really calm with cobras. They're not, you know what I mean, because I know exactly how to deal with them, and they're not even dangerous, and they're not ever going to bite me.
Yes, I think that's one of my favorite videos of all time on the internet is you with a king cobra.
Hmm.
Am I remembering that right?
Well, I've had a lot of videos with kings and regular cobras and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I got many pictures just holding cobras up in my hand, hooded up, kings and otherwise. And as long as you understand the behavior and you don't do it when they're in shed, it'll be okay. But when they're in shed, first of all, it's manipulating the animal to do what you want it to do. And like to hold up a cobra or a king cobra at all, the animal has to be really fixated by something in front of you to be able to do it safely. So that means that somebody in front has to be attracting the attention of the cobra. And then you can just simply pick it up and pick it up high, and it'll show you holding this king cobra and it's all hooded up. But it's not paying any attention to me because the fact that it can see the threat, it'll react to the threat. Now, if it were opaque, though, it would react to the tactile threat, which would be your hand holding it. That would be very dangerous. That's what happened to Tyler Nolan.
Mm. Mm-hmm. That's the same secret I use. I started off, I realized I could do it here and with my animals. So when I started attempting to hold them in the wild, first of all, I had my trappers stop grabbing them by the head.
Well,
And
that's how once they mess them all up, they get scared immediately. You have to
mhm.
be best just catch it yourself, or just at least have somebody catch it where they're not grabbing it by the neck and all that stuff.
Well, when I established a relationship with a good group, that I was able to tell them what I wanted and how I wanted to do it. And after that, the emeralds have always been really tame. But my trick is just what you said. Make sure there's something in front of them that they would be attracted to. And they want to slither off onto a tree or a vine, or even if it's my tripod, as long as they can have their attention on something else, then I can do whatever I want with my hands.
Pretty much. You're
I
right.
I have a video of an emerald on my last trip to Suriname a couple months ago, and I was finished with that little emerald. I do an education thing with all the children in the villages when I go with animals that I intercept from exportation, and then I take them and put them back out in the wild. And I had all these emeralds, and I put this little emerald down. He was probably maybe a 2 or 3 year old. And I set him down in the grass, and I went to go get the next emerald. And that little emerald followed me, slithered, following me to my whole thing with the next emerald, walking over, showing the children. And that same little emerald is in the grass, scoped up, watching me the whole time.
Hmm.
So I know that they get curious, and they definitely think.
Oh, I know they all do.
It's
I know.
incredible to watch their body language change. And we've just discussed the importance of making sure that there's some distractions so that our hands are not the focal point when we're touching animals. But what else would you say would be advice for people to learn how to read
The main thing
reptiles?
is simply not scare them. And if you're doing something and the animal's pulling away, stop doing it. I mean, it's just listening to the body language of the animal. And you either can or you can't. And some people simply can't. But the lizard or the snake or whatever it is you're doing will tell you everything that it wants to do or doesn't want to do by how it's acting and behaving. And so your best hope, if you want to do anything with stuff like this, is manipulating the animal, not trying to force it to do something, because you can't force it to do a damn thing. You can force it to do something, but it'll hate every minute of it, and you're not accomplishing anything.
That's what I always say. These animals, the iguana and the emeralds I have here, are every bit as smart as a dog or a cat. They're just not they just don't listen to what you tell them to do.
All my big sakura are like dogs with scales. I mean, you saw them and living in my yard without even a cage. You know, those could get out of there anytime they want to. You know that, right?
Yes, they were roaming free.
It's chain link fence and they establish those as their territories, and they'll climb over to fight each other in breeding season. And the one that climbs over always climb back over to his side. They know. So when I watch that, I mean, how am I going to say that this is a stupid animal when it knows where it belongs, goes way out of its way in a lot of trouble to get over the chain link fence, and then fights with it's called jaw fencing. It's not any lethal fighting or anything. It's more like wrestling with monitor lizards, except they open their jaws and push their jaws against each other. It'll make their head bloody, but it won't hurt them. And they do this for hours in the wild. I mean, they could really hurt each other too. A big sakura could. It could bite our hand completely off.
Mm.
I mean, the sakura have those huge heads, and they have tremendous jaw power with big serrated teeth. Haven't been bit by one in 40 years.
Wow.
Since I was catching them, 40 or 50 years.
Wow.
Those
And
cats
you,
don't bite.
and you guys, Tom and Stacy's rock iguanas are
Mm-hmm.
just around the property. You can just walk by them and reach down and give a little pet, just like you would to a dog laying there.
Yep,
And they just look
not
up
even.
at you.
Yep, not even in a cage.
Yep, just completely comfortable with the people around them.
Yep, yep. I love them. I've had them a long time.
If we have folks who are out there keeping reptiles, but not realizing that there's a possibility to grow a relationship with this animal, how does somebody start the process?
Listen to what the animal's telling you about how it acts in the cage, every day, and learn from it and build on it. And that's the only thing I can tell you, because there's no right way or a wrong way. It's the way that works. And if the animal is afraid of you, I'll say again, it's not going to work ever. Because if it's afraid of you, it becomes then where either it does not want to harm this animal, it's just not going to want to have anything to do with you. And if it's a dangerous animal, it's going to try to hurt you. So just don't do it.
And also, what do you think about if you do keep an animal in a very small space, they may not ever feel really comfortable or secure when you approach them.
I don't really know if that's the truth or not. I do know that the animal knows it's being kept that way, and that's why I won't do it. Is I know that the animal realizes what's happening to it and understands kept in it and hates it, but he can't do anything about it. And sure, it may not bite when you bring it out or whatever, but that doesn't mean anything with the deep down part of it. And I just don't want to contribute to that. I can't do it anymore, knowing what I know
Mhm.
about their mental abilities.
Right. Once you recognize that they have brains and they think and
Yeah, they do.
feel,
They do.
just because they don't blink doesn't mean they don't feel something.
No, it's true.
When you're building your enclosures right now, do you have mostly everything outside? And for those of you guys who don't know, Tom is in South Florida still. So
Yeah.
there's good
Sebring,
weather to keep these kind of animals
yeah.
outside.
In Sebring, Florida, it's up in sort of more central Florida, but there's still weather is good.
Mm-hmm. And you're over there near TY Park?
I'm about an hour and 15 minutes from his park, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
not far. You talking about Guanaland, right? Ty Park.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Because that's where you kept some of your animals during your transition, right?
Yeah, I still have stuff there.
Yeah, I saw that online. That was amazing for Ty to take
It,
in
was,
your babies that
it
way.
is. It's amazing. Ty's a good man.
And he put a lot of work into building them nice spaces
No, he
while
did.
they were with
Real,
you, were
real
with
nice,
him.
real nice cages.
When you feed your reptiles, do you do anything special? The way that you have, like, say, Bill and Scarface trained to take food out of your hands, how does that come about?
Well, I start feeding them off tongs, see how they take the food and how rough they are taking the food. And if they're taking the food real gently, next time I'll hold the baby chick up by the feet and see it come up, and I can tell from its body language what it's going to do. And you'll usually take it real gentle, and then don't worry about it. It's done. Then start petting it under its chin, and that stuff. The next thing you know, it's going to climb on your shoulder or want to, and then you got to let it and not be afraid of it. But if you're afraid of it, it won't work. So, because you're not ever going to get it on your shoulder because you're not going to let that happen.
Right.
And we let it happen. And our results are the only person that was ever bitten by a croc monitor was me when I put the net on that female. And she tore out of the net. No one else here has even had a scratch in 15 years.
Wow. That's beautiful.
Yep. And not only that, I'm going to be honest with you, we haven't had one try to bite in that long. They just don't try to bite.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to bite us. It'd be the last thing in their mind is to bite us.
That's how I feel about my emeralds. They don't
Yeah.
show any inkling whatsoever to bite people. They're just
Yeah.
curious.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine them opening their mouth to do anything besides eat or yawn.
Yep, I didn't either, except for what I told you about that croc monitor does sometimes. Bill puts his mouth on people. That's strange. That was the strangest thing I've ever seen.
It
He
really
got
is
he
just like
got
a dog.
Stacy. He got Stacy one time under her armpit, and she's so small. His big jaw went over her shoulder, like underneath. He had the whole thing in his mouth. God, if he bit down, she'd definitely have to have her breast sewn back on because it would tear that pectoral muscle connection completely off.
Wow. It's just
You
their
know,
little way of saying,
I could really hurt you, but I would never do it. That's what I don't know for sure that's what's going through their mind, but when I see other animals do it, it's more clear from the other animals why they're doing it. I mean, your big pet dog, we have a 74-pound house dog, and he loves to play and run and grab you by the arm and his mouth like he's going to bite and growl, but he doesn't bite or growl. He's never going to hurt you, or bite hard or anything like that. And I've seen
Mhm.
birds, I've seen parrots do that a lot. put their mouth all in people's noses and lips. I've seen them even pull people's lips out and let them pop back, kind of, and they do all kinds of stuff like that. And a lot of animals do that, but I never thought a reptile would until I saw what appears to be the same thing. I don't know that it is, but man, I saw it happen 4 times
Mm-hmm.
to 4 different people.
Yeah, that's just the neat thing about transferring information, from one animal to the next is you start to recognize those behaviors
Yep.
unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm.
When you say to let them be the creatures they are,
Creatures, they really are, right. That means if you have an animal that likes to climb, swim in the water, whatever it is, you need to provide the ability for it to do that.
and well, you said you can't really say for sure, but do you think that has anything to do with the trust that you might have with an animal, is the
Well,
space that?
I think keeping him in a humane way has everything to do with trust. I mean, if you have an unhappy animal, like if you put it in buy a croc monitor, put it in a cage that's 4 feet tall, see how, and especially with the top opening, see how that works for you. It'll never get tame. You're just terrified all the time because you can't get up high and look down at you.
Right.
But you have to make them mentally comfortable in where they live. And the way to do that is to simply keep them so they can be the animals that they really are.
Have you found any animals that for example, I have a king snake that I rescued, and I can hold her and she's really nice and other people can hold her, but there's always a chance she's going to bite herself or somebody or anything. She just gets a really strong food response, and I don't feel like she's as nearly as intelligent as the emeralds.
Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I don't think so either. It would make sense. Some species of reptiles are more intelligent than others.
Like dogs, like the German Shepherd or the Malinois.
Yeah,
Some of them are just more intelligent.
right.
What reptiles have you come across that you could say don't have? I don't want to say a chihuahua, but to me, a chihuahua has a real lizard brain where it's just constantly reacting to everything around it without thinking. But I've never had a relationship with a chihuahua, so I can't really say that. But a reptile who a whole species in general, have you experienced that does not have the level of intelligence to truly interact with us?
I wouldn't know the answer to that, or if there even is one under the right conditions and the right person.
Right.
So it's just too broad of a question to be able to answer intelligently.
And that's a really good point
Yeah.
too, is that different people would bond with different species.
Well, they would because they have a passion for it, so they're willing to do more to make it work.
Mm-hmm. Just like me in the field, I can't seem to make a relationship with the red-tailed boa, with the boa constrictor.
So they're real easy. I mean, incredibly easy.
But I can handle 5 wild emeralds at one time, all by myself with no help. But I can't handle one red-tailed boa. So we
Yeah,
just
you could.
I've tried many times, all different sizes. I've come across a few that I could hold and I used as ambassadors over there, but in general, if I had 32 boas, I might have handled 3 of them. But if I had 32 emeralds, I've handled 32 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe
I don't know what to
sometimes,
tell you on that, but with red-tailed boas, we found them pretty inoffensive too.
But I find them snippier than like Colombian boas.
What's that?
mm,
Well, you think of Colombians too would be like that from the wild.
Yeah, but they don't.
So,
I find
she's
the
talking about
Colombians.
wild red-tailed boas, though.
Oh well, one you had said, "Oh, one bit me and it bit you like 8 times."
Yeah,
But I've had ones that were tame. Remember the one I caught?
yeah.
yeah,
Stacy,
I'm sure
Stacy
there are
caught one.
exceptions.
Stacy caught one in Peru one time that didn't try to bite at all.
Mm-hmm. So Stacy's traveled around herping in South America and other places too?
Oh, God, she's went on 4 trips when I used to guide the trips for Green Tracks with Bill Lamar and Dante Finalio, the conservation director for the San Antonio Zoo. We used to take trips into the Amazon, herp trips, to find as many different species of herps as we could. We usually find way over 100, 120 or 30 sometimes in about 8 days. But we're living without electricity. We're living in the Indian villages, with the Yagua, and the Pia Roja, or the red people. And Stacy's been on 4 of those expeditions with me.
Wow.
Yep.
When was the last time you did an expedition like that?
Last time we were in Peru was 2018.
Oh, that wasn't very long ago.
No, not too long ago.
Do you know my friends Igor and Bart in Suriname?
I know Bart real well. Bart has stayed at my house lots of times. I know him since he was a little boy. His father's Teo Henson. Teo Henson I know real well. He's one of the craziest son of bitches I ever met in my life. He really is. He's insane. And Bart is one of his sons. He calls his big son, but it's not his oldest son. He's got 4 sons. But I know him real well. Igor is the Russian guy who lives there, and I don't know and haven't spent much time with him, but he knows who I am, and I know who he is, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
But Bart, I know personally, like for 30 years.
Wow. Yeah, he's been in the business for generations.
So he's never done anything else.
I just love both of those guys.
Yeah.
Something that is really controversial that I've actually never said in public is that you hear people a lot of times, they say, if you paid money for it, you're not rescuing it. And so you have good keepers who don't want to buy a wild caught animal because they don't want to contribute to the exportation.
I understand.
But I happen to know that there's a certain number of animals that will be exported regardless of who purchases them.
I already know that.
So if
they have a quota in the country, so
that's right. So those animals are going to come over here no matter who buys them. So if you're at an expo and you feel like you might want to rescue something, I think that just because you paid money for that animal and you can give it a great home, those animals are going to keep getting on that table, no matter who buys it.
Most people who buy them don't know what they're doing.
I haven't had my phone charged in too, and I don't know. I think
You need me to get a plug?
my phone's getting low. So.
Okay, well, I really appreciate you guys being here, and it was just amazing to see both of you. And Stacy, you look so beautiful.
Come here, Stacy.
Thank you for being here, Stacy. I just loved seeing you guys and spending time with you and getting to talk to you about building trustful relationships with our animals.
Well, you got it going on, so come visit us anytime you want to.
Thank you. We'll see you guys again. Chris, when we finish here, bring me back so I can chat with my viewers for a minute. Thank you, Stacy. Thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Anytime. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, Chris, if you want to show our video for our sponsors, that would be awesome. And you guys stay here and I'll be right back to chat for a minute. Chris maybe have stepped out of the room, but as soon as
lights come on, pulse in the air, we unite. Cold-blooded got 5 feet in the night. Cold-blooded caffeine, fueling the fight. Reptile crew got our backs tight. Thank you fam for keeping us all. CIB reptiles rolling with soul. Hold no soul, lifting our goal. Together we burn like burning coal. Elevate, most rise in the show. Irresistible pythons letting it flow. Rhetoric crew, yeah, but watch them go. Indigo, reptile co, set the glow. Shut up feeders, we shut out feelers. Under the rock with cold-blooded hitters. Ship your reptiles, make life better. South Bay reptiles, through every weather. Blue pouch, I'm a blue-tongue republic. Arc adventures, riding republic. No how your dreams embellished. Sponsors love through beats we rise, showing thanks to that under the skies. Unite the world, reptile ties, cold blood, warm hearts, no disguise.
Hey guys, you still out there? That was so awesome to get to talk to Tom and Stacy. You know, I met them one time when I was traveling around with Dave, and he took me over to their farm there in South Florida, Dave Kaufman. And I got to experience all of the things he said, the Gila monsters, the beaded lizards, the cobras, of course, the crocodile monitor, his iguanas, turtles, emus. It was just insane, all of the animals that I got to experience. And when I went back to look at my phone to get pictures to make some promo posts for this podcast today, I found that I really didn't have very many pictures. And if I don't have a lot of pictures, that means one thing. I was way too enthralled to pick up my phone and take pictures. It was nonstop, beautiful animals, beautiful enclosures. When he talks about those great big snakes that he has, they're in huge outdoor spaces with all, I'm going to say the red-tail boas and the pythons that, you know, I don't know the names of all the different animals, but they were huge, big, fat snakes. And they had all kinds of spaces to climb up and hides that were up high. It wasn't just on the ground. So the way Tom and Stacy do the research to see what kind of habitat their animals want to live in and then provide it, it's just amazing the outcome that they get with the interaction they get to have with their animals. It was really did feel like a one-on-one with you guys and Tom. And I know we're all so happy to see Stacy looking so beautiful and happy and healthy. She scared us all, and now we just have her back. And I'm sure even better because, you know, it always feels like it's better. She sure looked great. And I really appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. And, well, actually, sweetie, are you here? I was going to see if I could get Larry to come in front of the camera for a minute, but I don't think he's down here. Today is our 10-year wedding anniversary. So we are about to go to dinner, and you want to know where we're going to go. It's not very exciting. It's a chain restaurant, and it is, what's the name of the restaurant I like? It's a steakhouse. But the one reason I like it is because they have, what's the name of the restaurant I like to go with my favorite dessert?
Longhorn.
Oh, Longhorn Steakhouse. And the only reason I like to eat there, I always get the same thing everywhere I go, is salmon and potatoes. But they have this most delicious cheesecake that I love. So that's where we're going tonight. Can you come over here? So everybody wants to say happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, love. So yes, 10 years today. It's been amazing. We got married out on the lake on a boat because that's what I love, even though our boat's still in storage because we have been too busy working with these animals. Guys, thank you. Thank you, Gabriel. Thank you for being here, Morelia and Scissor G and Baloo. I just love seeing all of you guys' comments pop up. I can see your names in blue, but to read the words below it, it's kind of hard for me. So when Chris pops something up on the screen, I can usually see it to some degree, but I do need these glasses to truly see the monitor. And Larry gave me a really nice big screen over here that I can see, but I always forget to turn my head and look at it. Hey, Queenie. You guys, I just learned who Queenie was today. So it's fun, you know, I don't always get to see your faces. Like, for example, Morelia is a real mystery. Morelia doesn't want us to. I actually just found out recently that Morelia azurea is a species of green tree python. And I always thought Morelia was Morelia's name, but it turns out that I know Morelia belongs to a reptile group, and likes to write reports on different animals and wrote a beautiful report on green tree pythons. And then, of course, Gabriel, who is Ghost, I know very well. As a matter of fact, you guys ready to get really, really jealous? Gabriel's coming to our house next month for our Happy Basins adoption party. And we have two couples who have proven to be the kind of parents that we want our baby emeralds to go to. And those two couples are coming all the way here to sleep in this jungle room in hammocks with all of the emeralds slithering around them. And it's going to be a big adoption party. And the part that everybody's going to be jealous of is that Ghost, Gabriel, is going to be coming here to be our videographer for the whole weekend. So Ghost is going to be filming everything. And when you see all that video footage of our Happy Basins adoption party, you'll know who took all those videos and pictures. Yes, it's going to be amazing. And we're super excited about it. Yes, Chris. And you guys who don't know, Chris contacted me about this podcast, and I said, I can't do it because that's too much work. Contacting guests and putting together thumbnails and short videos to advertise and all of the things. And Chris said, you just mic up and show up and I'll do the work. So this is such a fantastic honor for me, and I have so much fun, and you guys are what makes it so fun. When I get to sit down here and see you guys interacting with these live chats that I get to have with such amazing people, it's just a real heartfelt experience for me. I love my guests. I love you guys, and I super appreciate Chris and Queenie for putting all of this together and making it happen. Thank you guys. Well, I am going to go have my anniversary dinner. I'm going to have salmon and mashed potatoes and, like I said, the cheesecake. The cheesecake at the steakhouse, I always want to say Outback. That's why I can never remember the name of it. Longhorn Steakhouse. It's just like a cheesecake ball, and it's super creamy. It's not like that dry cooked cheesecake. It's the most delicious thing. I can't wait to get it. You guys, thank you. I'm going to sign off now, and I love and appreciate every one of you, and we'll see you again very soon. Good night. I'm just looking at the camera until Chris turns us off. So I'll just keep looking at you guys. Looking into your eyes. I bet Chris stepped out of the room for a minute, but I'll stay here till I get. Oh, we got a surprise. We got Larry. And until he signs us off, I'll just keep talking. We have 5 babies in this last litter that we had. Of course, Peyo's not going anywhere, but 2 of our babies are getting adopted out. One of the families who's adopting one of the babies is really working it, trying really hard to adopt 2 of the babies. It's really hard for Larry and I to part with any of them because they're our babies, our very first full litter of babies, but we can't just keep the animals. So we've come up with a really cool adoption process where people have to, it's kind of like a private contest that people don't know they're entering. Like, who can send us their enclosures to show us that they are going to treat their animals in ways that are going to let the animal feel like the animal that they are. In other words, is this baby emerald going to go to a home where it's going to get to grow up feeling like an emerald tree boa? And those are the families that we considered when we decided to adopt our babies out. And we didn't ever put anything for sale or anything like that. Rather, we just found people that had those types of habitats and asked if they were interested in adopting one of our babies.
Underneath cold they hum, shadows of scales where whispers come. A world of emeralds and tales untold, chasing the warmth in a world so cold. Happy basins, we rise and glow, charmed Trojan stories the world should know. Emerald dreams in a twilight sky, together we thrive as the days go by. Amy speaks with a voice so kind, spreading the knowledge to ease the mind. Through winding paths of scale